Welcome back, coaches. This is the football coaching podcast.
Went too hard. Too hard too soon.
Too hard.
Yeah.
I am Daniel Chamberlain, co-host here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
I have a heart full of joy today, Coach.
Yeah.
So
You're practicing.
Can't be ruined with this one little thing.
Yeah.
It was actually a rather ridiculous day. I told you about the officer thing, which
Yes.
I'll get into.
Yep.
And then I had a tire with a bulging knot in the side of it out of nowhere. And then on my way home after getting the tire replaced, the front end little cover plastic thingy on this Honda, whatever it's called, a splash guard for the whole engine section, just fell off going down the interstate. So,
oh yeah,
for every good, there's two bads.
My wife had a 2010 Camry that got ripped off on a parking thing.
Yeah.
And it got stuck on that, and she backed up. It basically ripped it off, and it was dragging. I just took it off, and I ordered a new one. But somewhere in the taking the old one off and putting it in the trunk and got the new one off of Amazon or whatever, and one of the bolts was missing. And I tried to find the bolt maybe like not very hard one time or something like that. And then it was just like, I kept being like, next time I take it in for an oil change, just be like, can you put this thing on? Never put it back on. Drove it for 5 more years. No, I take that back. Drove it for maybe 8 years. Sold it with 156,000 miles. It's fine.
Yeah, this is the I had to get it put back on. One, because it fell still connected to like where the transmission is kind of, so it was scraping the ground going forward, which sucks. And two, I didn't want to take it off because I want to make sure I got that good 40 miles to the gallon or whatever that car gets. So.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it's the right decision to leave it off. It just never went back on.
But you can't kill my goodness today. It's all joy all day. So. Well, let's talk about this episode tonight. We're talking how to defend modern offenses. Like always, I'm sure you read the title there. We can't keep up with the spread offense. We're going to talk about the spread specifically some, but in generalities, your defense should be able to do it all. So we're going to talk about that. Your defense should be able to adapt to anything. We will talk about adjustments to help shut down the spread and what they're trying to do, whether it be pass or run. And then we're going to talk about coaching your defense just to swarm the ball no matter what defense you're in, no matter what you're facing. So we're going to be fairly general and then some specifics and then get back general again. Let's jump to our level ups, Joe.
Yep, let's do it. So we went to, I should preface this by saying that Richmond has not had a proper arena for, I want to say 8 years. The Coliseum, which was very, very outdated, has basically, I think, is like condemned or whatever now. I don't know. But they haven't done anything, and they're going back and forth. Supposedly, we're getting something in Henrico in like 2026, but that keeps getting pushed back. So we don't have a proper arena to host concerts or anything. We have nothing here. This is the capital of the state. There's 1 million people in Metro Richmond. We can't host a concert. We can't, we got small like venues and stuff, but like a traditional arena, we don't have. So there has not been wrestling in here since I want to say 2017. I want to say that I went to like Backlash was here in like 2017, WWE, and so I know AJ Styles wrestled, but it's been a while. So anyway, they were coming to AEW, which is the wrestling that I watch now. I'm not really into WWE. I watch AEW. AEW was coming to Roanoke, which is about 2 hours and 45 minutes from here. They'll come to DC, which went to the very first AEW show, which was in DC. That's only about 90 miles, 90 minutes, but it's DC. There's a certain just pain.
Oh yeah, I've been there, and you also can't get around.
You can't get around
at all.
It's much more expensive to get a hotel or anything like that. It's just, so I've been to Norfolk, which was fine. And that's a couple hours, but they were in Roanoke. And so like Monday, I just went to my wife went to college there. She went to Roanoke College. So, which actually isn't in Roanoke. It's in Salem, but it's in Roanoke. It's just a whole thing, but it's in the same area. So I was like, hey, do you want to go to Roanoke Saturday? And she always is down to go back and visit, the old college town and look around and walk campus and see all her old places. But I was like, AEW, and she does like wrestling, so I was like, AEW's got a show there on Saturday. AEW Collision. We'll take my son. So my son went to his first pro wrestling event He's just turned 3, so this was an adventure. We drove down on Saturday, spent the night, walked, kind of cruised around and saw let my wife see all the old places. Went to the place that she used to go. That was like their night spot. We had breakfast there, lunch there with my son and everything. So, but we went to the show and we made it pretty much through. There was about, I think the arena was set up to hold 3,800. There was about 3,300 there. So it wasn't quite a sellout, which turned out to be a blessing because we had a couple of older, middle-aged or older, maybe gentlemen in front of us who like weren't even talking. They just were like sitting. And I mean, we got there a little bit before the show and everything got set up. And of course, my son is just all over the place and he's like kicking the back of their chairs and stuff. I'm like, these guys are going to be big mad. Like, they weren't saying anything. They were, had it been like, a woman who just loves kids in front of us, if that would have been the best, or other little kids or something like that. Cause there were other kids there, but that was not what we had. And he wanted to move around, run around. So we were already up pretty high. I looked at my wife and I was like, there's nobody in the back, like 4 rows. I mean, I'm like 5 rows back. The last 4 rows are empty.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go up there. We're going to sit. He can kind of run around, play on the floor of the arena. Who cares? Like, so we're at the very, very top. And it was, I missed, like, I didn't get to see as much. So the big match that I wanted to see, the 2 things that I went to see was, actually, I just went to the show. We didn't even know it was going to be on the card. Kyle Fletcher wrestled Tomohiro Ishii. I love New Japan Pro Wrestling. And so when I get to see the Japanese wrestlers come to the US, and I got to see Minoru Suzuki last time when I went to Norfolk, and I got to see Tomohiro Ishii this time, and I got to see Shibata live, so I'd never seen that. So it was really cool. But he was still kind of all over the place, so I'll have to watch that match back on TV. But it was very good. He got into, so most of the time he was like, he was like too loud at it. He had the
For sure.
earmuffs on.
And
And
kudos to you for putting the ear. We see people that don't do that a lot.
well, his ears have been very sensitive ever since he got the tubes, which has been an absolute game changer as far as like he was sick constantly with ear infections. And so, but he doesn't like putting his head underwater since he got the tubes and loud noises and stuff, a little bit. But so yeah, we put the stuff on and put the earmuffs on. He actually had the plugs with the muffs over them for a while, but those fell out. Yeah. So he was okay, but he was just running around. There was like a 3-minute point where the crowd started chanting for Juice Robinson. So the crowd is chanting juice, juice, juice. So a 3-year-old is like, juice, juice, juice.
Yeah.
So he's chanting juice. He gets into it and he's like watching this match for 3 minutes. And that was probably the only time where he was like watching. And the rest of it was just like management. It was like, here's Paw Patrol. Here's, running around, like doing this. And then by the end, so the other big thing for us is that Hangman Adam Page is the world champion, just won the world championship. And Hangman Adam Page is from Aarons Creek, Virginia, which if they said he was from Blacksburg, it'd be like kind of like, he's from Virginia. If he was from Northern Virginia, nobody'd care, right? But he's from this like little crossroads, Aarons Creek, Virginia. In fact, when we were in Norfolk for the show a couple of years ago, he had just won the title then. So I guess if they're coming to Virginia, bet on Hangman to win the title. They've been here a couple times since then when he didn't win the title, but that's the 2 shows that I went to were both right after he won the title. And I knew that it was going to be like a celebration, right? So the funny thing is the last one we went to in Norfolk, we went to this little hot dog shop before the show. And I was with another family in this group, and my buddy had his kids with him, and his son was like 10, 11 years old at the time. And he had his sign with him, right? He had the sign that he was bringing, and it was a Hangman Adam Page sign. So we're sitting there and we're talking, and the kids are talking about Hangman and all this sort of stuff. And this older couple turns around, and they're in overalls, and I mean they're straight out of the woods. They are not from Norfolk, and they're like, "You like Hangman?" We were like, "Yeah, we like Hangman." And they're like, "That's my son."
Let's go.
It's legit his parents. So we met his parents, and they're like, "If you're ever in Aarons Creek, like come by." We're like, "Okay." No idea where that is, but okay. I think it's Augusta County, but I'm not sure. It's closer to North Carolina, I think. But so anyway, super cool. Like he's like the guy for like, going to see the show. So when he came out, I mean, it was, it's 3,300 people, but it was an eruption for him. And that was when my son checked that he was like not interested in Hangman. It was just too loud. He got upset. So like,
for sure.
kind of like held him through the rest of the match. Then they had a few like dark matches and stuff and ROH tapings afterwards, but we hung around long enough to hear him give his like, just kind of walked slowly towards the exit because Page was giving his like good to be back home speech, and then when it was over, but I will say this: the easiest to get in and get out for anything I have ever been to in my life. And when you are like just trying to get to the exit, and then like you get in the car and you drive straight out, don't even slow down, like the best, just the best. Like it's great to go to, a baseball game and there's 40,000 people and all that sort of stuff. It's great to go to an NFL game and stuff like that. It's great to go to the big arena, in DC, and there's 16,000 people there. But to go to a show and it makes me wish that I hadn't missed the like old days of like the armories and stuff where it was, the Smoky Armory with 800 people in there on a Monday night, and you just kind of go in, hang out, go home, and like 2-hour show in and out. It's like, anyway, it was great. It was his first show. We made it through, probably a little early, but we made it.
It's all right, man. I can remember taking Beckett when he was, months old to an OU game. So like,
yeah.
I think it's great to get them acclimated early if you take care of their hearing. Unfortunately, not all parents do. That's why I said kudos on that, because we definitely did. But he still doesn't love football, but Liam does. Liam just loves it. He's all about. He says Boomer. He puts his finger up for kickoffs.
Yeah.
He starts the chant in the house sometimes, Daddy Boomer. So I'll say Sooner. Like so getting them all bought in on something's really cool.
Yeah.
So.
And like at the time he was just like crying and stuff. And then of course he wasn't crying, but he was on the verge. And then we get out and we're like, did you have fun at the show? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, their standards are different. It's like they could cry, scream, be miserable for 2 hours, but they're like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Wrestling. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
All right. Well, good to go. About 7 level ups this week. I know last week you had a bunch and you had to just pick some. And so I'm going to save some for next week, but I got 2 good ones, and I'm going to tie them into football because I feel like that's what I see is the more I do things in life, I realize that like football is not that much different than anything else. And anyway, so my first one is my wife and I went to, there's an outdoor park here, like where you ride side by sides, 4-wheelers, whatever. And it's been owned by a company for several years, and they sold it, bankrupted, whatever. So a new group bought it. They're opening up a restaurant, and it's like they had blues and barbecue. So we went to try their stuff because we're big barbecue people. The food was meh, but there was a cover band there, and they were playing all these tunes, right? And there was probably 20 people in the house. So it was very nice, very small. And I start singing along because I like to sing along. And the guy that's singing comes down in between their songs, and he's like, hey, I heard you singing. So what are you going to sing with us tonight? And I was like, I'm not getting on stage to sing. Like, it's been a dream of mine for a long time to play guitar for a live band, like a live audience. And
right.
Because it's do something scares you every day. That scares the shit out of me. I'm frightened of bombing in front of a crowd. Anyway, so he finally talks to me, and he's like, listen, just pick a couple songs. I'll tell you if I got them, if I can play them, if we've got, the stuff for the band to play, because it's just a electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. And so I tried Zach Bryan's Something in the Orange. Is finally the one we decided he had. And I got it for half a song, bombed so hard.
Nice.
And then I realized, I can hear myself out of the thing. Like I can hear and so I adjusted, and then it sounded good. I killed it for half a song. And then we closed out the night. He let me play his guitar on stage. There was no one else. Everyone else left. So it was just me and my wife on date night, and then the band. So, and then of course the people in the restaurant that were working, but no more patrons. Right. So I got to just pick a guitar and sing into a mic in like a real ass setting. It was nice. Sorry for my cussing. It's been a long weekend. Anyway. So I have that as one of my level ups, because if you listen to me, like I sing in the car, I sing in the shower, I sing around the house, I sing all the time. Mm-hmm. And my wife was always like, oh, you can sing so good. And I'm like, well, someday I'll try to do that, right? Is get on a stage and sing. People out there in the world are good at things, and they make it seem so stinking easy. And when you have to get in their shoes and do something, like, it's not easy. That's very, very hard. Just to get up there and sing quality consistent was not happening for me. I couldn't find my voice. Even when I was just picking and singing, I was like, I can't. How far do I be from the mic? And how do I? No, it's so, so hard.
Yeah.
So, and I think about football a lot is that like, even whether it's kids, whether it's coaches, parents, whatever, we all talk about the parents who complain to the coach because of, cover number 12 or whatever, fine. I get that. But if you're a new coach and you're thinking like, oh, I should be the head coach, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, or I should be the coordinator because anybody can just call plays, like there's something about stepping into that big level, like that the spotlight, right? And it's something you've never
Changes
done
everything.
before. Luckily, I grew up in some decent programs in football, and like I was calling junior high offense my first year, so I got that experience. So calling plays was pretty natural. I mean, it came quickly, but I think you just have to, you got to be careful before you think, oh, that's so easy. Anyone can do it and jump off. And especially if you're criticizing others or, the old backstabbing them to get their job kind of thing. Cause, buddy, it ain't all there. Which leads me to my second one. I also spent the rest of the weekend helping some family friends. Got a military buddy of mine that owns a food truck. And so I went with him and did catering. I think I've talked about that a little bit on here before, but we ended up just doing caterings. I didn't actually have to work the food truck at an event, but cooking and stuff. And his wife has been a friend of mine, but actually before I knew them both separately before they got together. But I've helped them out at big events before, and they're like, man, it's so nice having someone who can jump in here that has like common sense and can just operate and do stuff, right? Whether it's cleaning up after yourself or they praised me one time for just making salsa when we were running out of salsa, like get the stuff out, start
Right.
chopping stuff. Because when they bring in, college kids or high school kids to just get through an event, that's not what happens, right? It's
No,
that
you have to
they
tell them
stand there with,
every little
I,
thing.
I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. You have to tell them every step of everything. And there's a little bit of art to it. Like you can just kind of get in and see the void, fill the void, make things happen. And so once again, tying that back into football, this weekend, it hit me hard. Like I know that I do it too. I often am a proponent of like giving guys their first shot. You know what I mean? Hire guys that aren't super experienced because some of them might be like me and a little OCD, and they can turn the digital side of your football program around and help you be organized and really take things off your plate. But I didn't jump into football out of high school either, right? I had a whole military career and multiple other jobs, and so I came in with experience. But I'll often say, give these guys a shot. But if you have to understand, if you're a young coach right now, and maybe you're listening to this podcast, you can learn some ball. Like number one, you're doing the right thing. But there's a reason why guys go with experience. We see it right now in the transfer portal in college football, right?
Yeah.
Why would I give a guy his first shot out of high school when I can pick up a kid that has, 500 snaps or 1,000 snaps or whatever? People have been there because they just kind of know what's expected. They just start doing instead of standing around. The other part of that is if you are new and you're trying to fill one of those voids, is like you can't be scared to just do. Something I continuously see repeated is this idea that I can put up handrails and guide you to get you to do things the way I want them done. What I can't do is make you start walking, right? I can't make you start doing. That's harder on me. I can do it, but it's much harder than just saying, hey, you're moving forward. Now I'm just going to give you a rail over here and a rail over here, and you can bounce around or whatever you need to do in between because now I got you going the way I want you going, but you had to be the self-starter and get going. So don't be a guy that's scared to just do stuff. If a coach doesn't trust you, and I made a big Twitter post about this the other day, like coaches not trusting and it becomes that micromanagement. I'm telling you, if you'll just start operating, just start doing something, I imagine he'll probably let go of the reins a little bit and just give you more guidelines instead of strict by the book. Here's every step of the way. So anyway, that's my two level ups from this week is just doing something that scared the crap out of me and made me realize that like some stuff's just really hard to do. And then but the other one was like you also just need to do it. So yeah, that's my level up.
A lot of times that micromanaging is exactly what you said. It's not because it's not because if I'm micromanaging you, it's because of one of two things. One, you just aren't doing anything, and if I don't get it and micromanage you, nothing will get done.
Yeah.
Two, and I'm saying I don't want to be micromanager, but
I understand.
two, you want to do what you want to do without regard for the system or the program. And so the overall. So as long as you are as long as you are doing something and you are doing it with the overall, not the good of the program is too broad, because a lot of people decide it's exactly all the things you were talking about.
Yes.
A lot of people decide I know what's good for the program, and that's sabotage. Everybody's got to be lockstep going in the same direction. Even if you don't agree with it, you got to make a consensus and you got to go in that direction. And the consensus starts with the head coach and then goes to the coordinators, regardless of how much you think you know. And I deal with that a lot with coaches who come in to JDFB and they really love the podcast and they get into all the stuff with JDFB. And this is their first, second, third year. And they're on a staff with a head coach who's 30 years in, and he's not doing the exact same stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And because they've been so heavily influenced by what we talk about on the podcast, and quite frankly, if you listen to Kenny, if you listen to a lot of the stuff that's out there, it's going to be very similar, in the same vein. And so, but it's not the only way. And certainly it's much more of a problem if you decide I've got to do it this way and I've got to make it this way and I'm going to fight with everybody to make it this way. It's like, no, that's not the direction to go. Anyway, yeah, I definitely, everything 100%, like you just got to go.
Yep.
You got to go, but you got to go in the right direction, I guess.
For sure. Last week, we talked about our offensive line keeps getting overpowered. That was a great episode to just talk about giving you some tips and tricks and how to get your offense to gel. Even just getting them to love their job was one of the big talking points. I highly recommend you go back and do that, especially if you're one of those guys that has undersized linemen or you think you do. You talk about youth coaches, listen to our stuff a lot more. If you're a youth guy, it's a great place to start. Next week, we're talking about we don't have enough depth at key positions. I know we've done some similar episodes in the last 2 years, just talking about not having enough kids, period. Sometimes you got a lot of Joes and then not enough, Jimmies, I guess. I don't know. The ones you need. So I look forward to talking about that.
I don't know which one's the best one.
I don't either. I think Joe has to be the best one. It's the Joe Daniel football system. So maybe I screwed that up.
Yeah, that's my
Before we jump in, though, quick ask. If you've got a fellow coach who'd benefit from this episode, any of the other episodes, please send them out, share them. One share makes a huge impact, especially in small coaching circles like ours that are out trying to improve themselves, and they don't always know where to go. So share this out to a coach. Let's pay the bills and move on, Joe.
All right. Is your team stuck in a losing tradition and you can't seem to break it? You put in hours of hard work, you do all the right things, you've tried changing the scheme and you've tried to change the culture, but nothing seems to work. You can't break the losing cycle. When the going gets tough and when adversity strikes, you see the heads drop and it's the same old, here we go again feeling. It's time to break out. My latest coaching manual is called Breaking the Losing Cycle, and it reveals how underdog teams are turning their seasons around without needing more talent or a bigger roster. Find out why teams stay stuck in that losing cycle, the secret ingredients to breaking out, and the quick fix solution you can use right now to break the losing cycle for good. Download the free manual now at joedanielfootball.com/breaking to break the cycle and put an end to your losing tradition now. By the way, it's BREAK for those of you who aren't big spellers, BREAKING, breaking. joedanielfootball.com/breaking. Download that free manual now.
We all know speed wins games. The real question is, are you fast enough? Speed changes everything. It turns average plays into touchdowns, good players into game breakers. But here's the truth. Real speed isn't just natural. It's trained. At Athletic Speed Movement, we show athletes how to get faster, quicker, and more explosive using proven methods that translate directly to the field. Our system was built by Del Basquette, who's done at the highest levels, the very first speed coach in the NFL. And it works for all athletes at every level on the way down. So whether you're a coach looking to elevate your team or a parent wanting to give your athlete an edge, this is where speed starts. Go to athleticspeedmovement.com. That's athleticspeedandmovement.com and learn how to build real speed that shows up on game day. Don't just play the game, outrun it. I'm going to start throwing a longer pause for better effect, I think. The old Raj treatment. Anyway, let's jump in here. Part one. I'm in a good mood. Let's do it. All right, so we're talking about a defensive system. We can't hang with the spread, or honestly, you can insert whatever thing here, right? It could be the spread offense, the air raid offense, it could be the flex bone, it could be whatever. You're struggling to stop a specific offense. Maybe they're on your schedule. Maybe that's the team that you have to beat this year to be, whatever, district champs or get over the hump or win one game. We talk variability a lot, Joe, and I've noticed this not on this podcast, the other podcast. I spoke to you earlier about an O-line coach that I've recently met that's kind of speaking the same language we do. It seems like everywhere I go now, the successful people are just preaching adaptability and variability. There isn't a right answer out there. You got to have answers for all the chaos, right? And so obviously that's what just about every episode on this podcast is now is, hey, don't have a way. I mean, don't have the way, have a way and build something that adapts. So it's kind of our first part here. We're talking about a defensive system. You need one that can adapt to anything, right? If you're locked into the 8-2-1 defense, you're going to struggle against the spread. So you need to pick up something that does fit. So let's talk about that. How do we kind of do that? How do we get a defensive system that adapts to anything?
Well, the first thing is there's a really quick way to identify whether somebody knows what they're talking about on defense as far as modern structure. And you can say that it's terminology or whatever, but if somebody says something like, well, the 4-2-5 or the 3-3 or the 3-5-3 is a spread defense, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Just in general, the reliance on numbers and these names for defenses is kind of ignorant. I will post something about the 4-2-5 defense and somebody will say, well, that looks like a 4-4. No. I call these guys safeties because it makes them feel faster. So it's not a 4-4, it's a 4-2-5. Is there a difference structurally? Absolutely not. This is high school football. We put the best 11 on the field.
Right.
Youth football. Like, what are you going to go recruit 2 new 10-year-olds because you want to run a 4-2 instead of a 4-4? But you're putting the best 11 on the field. So cut that crap out. I'll have guys say, well, 4-2-5 can't stop the wing T. Shut up. Just shut up. That's ignorant. It's just as ignorant to say, well, a 4-4 can't stop the spread. That's ignorant. Because you think that this is some NFL team. It's where we have a specialist outside backer rusher. It's like there's 11. What matters and the way that you create adaptability. I had a coach, one of our new JDFB coaches, and he had a lot of experience. He's a lot of coaching experience, but that doesn't always mean that some coaches have been doing it for a long time and are just now finding out like there's a better way. And he wanted to be multiple front. Well, in JDFB, we focus on the run fits, the structure, multiple front is easy. It's easy because if you look at it and you say, you know what, the numbers don't matter. And we've been doing this for years, by the way. How many of you have defenses where you call them outside linebackers? And how many of you have defenses where you say, well, we call him the hawk, we call him the tiger, we call him the bandit, the spur, and like, why did they start calling? Like, why did 3-5-3 teams especially? Why did they start calling everybody by these fancy names?
Right.
Well, it's because he's not an outside backer and he's not a safety, and so we're just going to call him a hawk, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But as soon as you do that, your defense, the numbers become irrelevant. I used to call our defensive end in the 4-3 a rush because he would also stand up when we would get into a 3-3 front. And guys would go, well, who should stand up and become the outside backer? Well, I had a defensive end who was the outside backer before he lost the job. And we moved him to defensive end. And he happened to play strong end in our 4-3. So we stood the strong end up. But a lot of times in the 4-2-5, because we're not in a 9 technique, we're in a 6 technique, it's the weak end. It doesn't, like, these things don't matter. They don't matter. And so when we talk about flexibility and the ability to defend everything, if your defense, if you mentally are still caught up in we are a 4-2. Now, There is a reason, and I can give you all of the reasons behind the 4 systems that we base out of. There is always a base, there is always a home, there is always, but it's not about which one can defend the spread, which one can defend the wing tee, which one can defend, like, and guys say, "Well, we see everything." God, we all do. I don't know what you think. I get guys come to me and say, "Well, you see our schedule. We see it." We run a single wing, a double wing. I mean, I run everything. Like, I ran a Jets last year. I had 3 offenses, and they weren't even all of them that we run. I mean, like, I got into a power I. I got into a single wing. I got into a wing T jet series. I got into our base 1 back offense. I got into a spread 10 personnel. I had an empty package. And that's it. That's not everybody doing that. We have that flexibility within our system, but not everybody does that. But in a typical schedule, it's not unusual at all to see a spread 1 week, a wing tee the next week, a double wing the next week, a single wing the next week, a 1 back, an I formation. It's not unusual at all to see all those things.
Right.
Usually, the only time that you see one style over and over and over again is when you have one program, be it college or a high school program or a college program, in that area that has had a level of success and a level of influence that everybody has kind of adopted it. So, but the norm is not for every, and that's not as common as it used to be, because it's much easier for somebody to go out and learn, you know, online and get different stuff and go travel and to pick up. And so very rarely do we see everybody in one system. So, yeah, your defense has to be versatile and has to be able to adapt to everything, and that includes spread. Those rules have to be built in. The answer cannot be, well, this is the flavor of the week approach that we try to kill. Well, when we play a spread, we're going to be a 3-3. Now, Bill Weiss, who does game film analysis, his team, the team that made a run to the state semis, out of nowhere, played fantastically disciplined defense. He ran a 3-3 against his spread opponents. The key was he liked that look against spread opponents, but nothing changed in terms of spill, force, alley. The
foundation is still
Bill
there, right?
was so committed to, and his defensive staff was so committed to the umbrella and the things we teach in JDFB and the defensive drill system. He was so committed to those things, which this is what we teach coaches to do. He could very easily jump into another front. And it didn't change he was still a cover 3 base with the quarters, look behind it, cover 4 sometimes. And it was all built in. I mean, it was all foundational. The adjustments were there. So the adjustments to, it's no different than if I had a different way to defend every single play. We used to do that long, long ago. We would start Monday with, here's their top 3 plays and how we're going to fit them. We would teach the run fits. That doesn't work. It has to be built in. It's all baked in. So if you don't have a system, then you're going, what do I do to defend the spread? What do I get into? What do I run? And there's always the ability to get into different fronts that create numbers advantages. And that's what we look at with, how do I create a numbers advantage? How do I create a leverage advantage? How do I take away space? All of those things. So there's alignment adjustments. Honestly, going from a 3-3 to a 3-4 to a 4-2, or 4-3. 4-3 is a little bit different, but that shouldn't be anything more to you than an alignment adjustment. And it may also involve some assignment adjustment, but ultimately, because we're slanting instead of playing from a shade. So the technique is slightly different, but it's still, I slant to a shade. And so, for the most part, the key reads remain the same. The rules for adjustment pretty much remain the same, all that sort of stuff. You should look at that as no more than an alignment lever for the most part, which is putting guys in different places. Does it give them a different look? Does it allow us to do something different, to move differently? Sure. But this all has to be cooked into your system. It's really important.
Yeah, the having the answers. I love kind of what you said there about don't end up being flavor of the week. Like, oh, we're gonna change it up this week. Like, and I've got caught there before, right? I've done that as a coordinator. I think that's why it's so important to have a great foundation. And if it's the Joe Daniel football system, if you're gonna run that, any of your defenses, or okay, if you go buy one online, as long as you can hold the foundation together, right? I spoke with a coach this past week who's their DC is going to put in the 4-3 and a 3-4 and a 3-3, maybe. But it was two that don't really pair up well, and I thought, well, that's honestly, I'm quite. This guy's been at it a long time. I'm interested in seeing how that turns out. How does he?
We did that. It pairs up.
How does he? Maybe it was a 3-4. How's he coaching it? That's can he coach it? Can he get that put in? Because then by all means, if you have a system and it adapts to stuff, do it. Our biggest thing is like, don't change your force player. Well, in a 3-4, a 2 high safety, the safety's a C gap player. In the 4-3, who's the C gap player? Well, the defensive end has to play outside, so it's not him. Outside of a tight end. So anyway,
the 3-4, the 3-4 is inherent with the complexity of the 3-4 comes not from the 3 or the 2. It comes from the 2 outside backers and the 2 safeties. All have to be able to be forced. They have to be able to be spill, and the 2 safeties have to be able to be alley, force. The 2 safeties have to be able to play alley or force. The 2 outside backers have to be able to play spill or force. And so there's an inherent complexity with that. And so if you go multiple front with the 4-3 and the 3-4, it's not too bad. Again, it's just who you kick down to the defensive line, who kicks out of the box. It's kind of like an underfront, because if you run an underfront, you're not that far off as it is. And you're essentially in a Eagle 5-2. So,
but yeah, keeping that adaptability alive through a strong foundation that's easy, and it has to mold. If your foundation's super strict and it doesn't allow things to adjust, it might be broken from the beginning, right? It's got cracks in the foundation. It doesn't matter what you put on top of it; it's not gonna last. So, anyway, that's just kind of my thinking on the adaptability. Got on part 2 here. Talk about adjusting your defense, whatever you're running now. So it doesn't matter what you're running. If you're a 4-3 coach now, if you're a 3-3 coach, we can adapt that to shut down the spread, right? And I think we have to cover both parts of the spread here, because yes, the spread is going to air it out a lot, right? Looking at 2x2, 3x1, but also a bunch of that is spread it out to run. So you've got to, those foundations have to stay kind of what you're talking about earlier. So I guess let's just kind of, push through that, Joe. Kind of how do you adjust what you're running now to adjust to the spread?
One of the things that's helpful is to understand what the spread wants to do. And the purpose of the spread of spread philosophies, and it's not a formation, the spread, it's not a formation, it's not a specific offense. The air raid is using spread principles. The run and shoot is using spread principles. The flex bone, you mentioned the flex bone, like a lot of stuff that happens in flex bone is going to use some spread principle. Every offense is, by the way, is using spread. We use spread principles as well. The purpose is to get athletes in space. If you want to use the basketball on grass, I think that's outdated, but the purpose is to get athletes in space. By the way, when a wing T runs a rocket toss, it's to get an athlete in space. Like, this isn't new, this isn't new stuff. Wing T is trying to put players in conflict so they can get a numbers advantage somewhere else, et cetera. Spread's doing the same thing. I remember this is when Tony Franklin was pretty new, and we got our first Tony Franklin system team, which is Dinwiddie. Got just Billy Mills had come in and just installed the Tony Franklin system. He does a great job with it. He had a ton of success at Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie was a struggling program when he took it over. They had been a championship level program. They had fallen some hard times, and he rebuilt the program, and he did it a lot with the Tony Franklin system. And I had been on a deep dive learning the wing T. I had gotten wherever they are, the Denny Crean books, a football coaching podcast guest back in the day, Denny Crean. Wing T from A to Z, Volume 1. If you're looking for the one that was it's kind of the Bible to me of wing T. It's a little heavy in the language and everything, but it's very descriptive. Like, if you're looking for the quick and easy way to learn it, it's not that. But I did a deep dive. I was making playbooks based on what was in there and everything. And I got all the Tuppy Raymond books, which are up here somewhere as well. And they are difficult to follow. They are not really well put together. So I learned a lot about the Wing T, the Buck series and the Power series. And I remember watching, I took the Landro Blue Box home and I studied, because we didn't see anything like the Tony Franklin system, like the air raid. We didn't see anything like that at that time. We were still seeing we were seeing I formations and some wing tees and all that sort of stuff. One back, so I brought the Landro Blue Box home, and I was a JV coordinator. I brought the Landro Blue Box home, and I remember studying, tagging everything I could, and studying for those of you who don't know, the Landro was one of the first video analysis that high schools could get. It was already in colleges, but the Landro was essentially a old school desktop computer, like you would set the monitor on top of. But it was a blue computer, but it was only for video, and the software, the basically the operating system on it was this video analysis software, and you had to go through and had a keyboard and whatever, and you tag it just like we do, but you didn't have you didn't have a piece of software. You had this almost like a game console, right? Almost like, it's like an Xbox that only runs Xbox games. It's like, this is a console that only does video football analysis, doesn't do anything else. And so because of that, you couldn't just download it. We could burn a CD or whatever, or burn a DVD, but that was it. And so I took the Blue Box home for a week or two over the summer, and to watch it at home and study all the film. And I remember watching hours and hours, watching the every scout film and everything I could get of the Tony Franklin system, of Dinwiddie running it. And I don't know if there's an actual connection. I don't know the Tony Franklin system that well. Like, I don't study it and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it was at the time $5,000. Like, I wasn't just gonna. It wasn't something you could just buy and learn. There were plenty of bootlegs out there, but running a website, by the time I learned about the bootlegs, I was running a website, and I wasn't going to start bootlegging other people's stuff. There's a karma thing there. Right. So I remember watching it and being like, having this epiphany. I was like, this is Wing T. And I started connecting, and I actually went back, and I probably screwed this up, but I didn't know what I was doing anyway. And nobody else was looking at all this stuff the way that I was. So I went back and I started tagging. I tagged about 80% of their plays as Wing T names that I knew. So I was calling them, and I didn't know, I knew the Wing T. I had learned the Wing T numbering system. So I'll put it in there, 121. Nobody else knows what that is. We didn't run Wing T. We were running probably one back offense or something. So nobody else knows what it is. So the tagging is completely meaningless to anybody else who went in there and looked. But I'm just like, I'm geeking out on like, and I'm also in that Dunning-Kruger effect where I'm at the top peak of Mount Stupid. And I think I've solved football because the Wing T numbering system now applied to Tony Franklin's system. We're going to shut them down. We did not. So you start to study. I don't even know where you study all this stuff, and the plays aren't the special thing about the spread. Like I said, the plays are zone blocking, gap scheme. Like, they're the zone schemes, there's gap schemes. So like when you see a spread offense and they're running zone read, well, it's zone and they're reading a defensive end. When they're running power read, well, it's power blocking with a read. If you see them, and a lot of times you'll see them bring an H back in, they'll run just straight power. They'll run counter. They'll run GT counter. It's a block down, kick out, wrap to the backer.
Let's go.
You'll see, inside zone and outside zone. You'll see the plays are not the thing that makes the spread special. It is about using the entire width of the field, spreading your defense out, and getting athletes in space. And then, so when you understand that, that the way to combat that is to either actually do it or artificially take the space away. In other words, if I, actually doing it, I can try to get my alignments spaced out in such a way that, we cover this and we cover that. But the reality is, if you spread your guys out enough, and I put my guys over all of your guys, however we do it, we're going to be in space. There's going to be space on the field. So then it's, how do I take away the space that you want? Like, you may want space for your number one receiver, but really you don't want space for your number two receiver because you're not throwing him the ball. You're trying to use it, because a lot of teams, high school teams, they run out of numbers, and that we try to go 10 personnel. We put 4 receivers out there, and the fourth one isn't really an option.
It's like your fifth O lineman, right?
Yeah, and it's like, well, I can either line up over him like he's a real person, or I can line up near him.
Yeah.
But not really, and I can close space somewhere else by basically not putting as much stock into who he is. So, and then the other thing I can do is I can use disguise to artificially take away that space. So it looks like we're taking away the space, but we're not really. We're going to move cadence, pre-snap, whatever, on the snap. So how do we take away the space? How do we cut down the space? And then how do we get our players reading what's happening and getting to where you want that space as quick as we can once we identify what you want to do? So pre-snap and post-snap. And again, it goes back to our, base defense, movement, disguise, all that sort of stuff, and then aggressive. How are we going to blitz? What are we going to do? And then the other thing is understanding one of the core ideas of the spread, which is counting the box. So it's a numbers game. 5 men in the box, we're going to run it. 6 men in the box, we're going to, kind of go by this is what we're good at. In theory, it was, we call a run play. If there's 5 guys in the box, run it. If there's 6 guys in the box, run it. If there's 7 guys in the box, check it, do something else. Don't run it. Don't run it into 7. 6 is, so, in that idea, you would say, like, well, we're going to put 6 in the box because then we don't make it easy for you. But what if your run game is pretty trash and I have some really good guys in there and our 5 can handle it? So, if we feel like our 5 can, because what they're counting on is that if you're 5, we have a hat for a hat. And if everybody's blocked, so if you can beat a block or multiple blocks, if they can't block you, you get the numbers advantage. And of course, then there's reads and everything that changes it. So you have to consider what they do well, what you do well, all that sort of stuff. Are you comfortable playing 0 and having them throw on you because you're playing cover 0 with a 7-man box? And a lot of times I have been. That's what you mentioned. Are they spread to run or spread to throw? If they're spread to run, maybe I want a 7-man box, and I'm going to let them try to throw on my cover 0 out there. Or maybe I want to just run a straight up cover 3 and have more eyes in the backfield because I know you're going to run it, and I'm not worried about you running 4 verts or whatever. So you got to consider all of that, but that you take those things and you apply that to your defense. And first of all, it's very quick to see whether you're a 3-4 or a 4-2 or a 3-3, or it doesn't matter. You're still dealing with the same thing. You're still dealing with the exact same thing. The base adjustment, I've talked about this a lot. Guys get into, well, it's a 4-3 or it's a 4-2. It's like, all right, well, half the teams you play don't use a tight end, maybe more. As soon as that tight end comes off the field, the only real difference, unless you talk about, before we talk about coverage, the only real difference in the 4-2 and the 4-3, because the idea that your 16-year-old outside linebacker is an outside linebacker and not an overhang safety is the dumbest thing on the planet. Like, stop. He's not. He's just your 11th best kid, right? That's just
standing in space.
It doesn't matter. So once we take the tight end off the field, no matter whether you had a 6-eye or a 9 before, he's a 5-tech defensive end now, and your Sam backer or your strong safety is walked out. How wide is he walked out? That, again, doesn't matter if it's a 4-3 or a 4-2. He's out. You don't leave him in the box against a no tight end, against a 10 personnel formation, unless you're going to go cover 0. And that's cover 0 is it's a different thing. So the defense that you're running is irrelevant. It's the adjustments that you make, the alignment adjustments that you make, the levers that you pull here. So Then we go and we look at, all right, do I want a 5-man box, a 6-man box, or a 7-man box? Do I want to play press on the corners and take away the short passing space and thereby giving up some space behind me? Because the fade is a more, there's a reason the fade is the automatic check. If you call a hitch and they press you, there's a reason fade is the automatic check. It's because the space is behind the corner, right? Just common sense. Like press is more susceptible to a fade. Hitch is closed. It's just out. You essentially cut it down when you press. You cut it down to slant or fade. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that's really. I mean, in theory, I've had people argue this with me, and it's like I've run a lot of stuff. I run a lot of deep outs against press. It still works, but like it's not supposed to. It just works because your technique in press isn't very good.
Right.
Just that's fine, and that's the thing. Oh, a comeback still works for sure. A deep out kind of works that way, but a dig might still work. Post might work against your press because you might be in press cover 0 in the middle of the field's open. But in theory, post shouldn't be a great concept just because it's press. So then it becomes, how do I want to take away the space? Do I want to apex so let's take that Sam backer in a 4-3 that's walked out now because there's no tight end. Do I want to apex him halfway between the man line of scrimmage and number 2 because I want to be closer to the box so that he can help on the run? He's still force, or maybe I'm forcing with the safety. Maybe I'm running a quarters coverage and the safety's the force, and so I can keep him in tighter, and he can be that 6.5 man, that extra half man in the box, but still close enough to play the bubble. The number 2 is not uncovered, but maybe I don't care if the number 2 is uncovered. Like, I'll let you throw to the uncovered number 2 all day as long as you don't throw to the other 3 guys, whatever. So, or do I want to be directly over top of him, or do I want to be outside leverage of him because the best thing that you do in your spread is throw bubbles to that guy out in space and block down, and like I gotta take away the bubbles. I gotta put them. So it becomes alignment. What's the depth of my free safety? Do I want my free safety over top and in the middle so that he can play help on the seams on 4 verts, or do I want him snug down over top of number 3 in your trips formation because you like to run RPOs, and I know that my linebacker is going to get sucked up on the RPO read because he's a daggone linebacker in high school football or youth football, and if he doesn't get sucked up on a run read, then they're just going to run it, and that's just death by a million cuts. At least you're only 80% on the stick. You're 100% on handing it off my linebacker frozen. So do I now want to snug my free safety down tighter so that he can help out on that and he can maybe separate the ball? These are alignment adjustments to take away space. And so again, it is, how many guys do I want at the point of attack? And then you can get more specific. Like if your best play is power read, maybe I want a couple guys. I want to squeeze more towards that strong side A gap. So ultimately, the way that you defend as far as adjusting your defense is knowing kind of what the spread is trying to do, which is usually to find space. And part of that is the numbers count. It's not just the numbers count. They're also looking 3/2, 3/3, all that sort of stuff. So they're counting. If they go trips, they want to see, is it 4/3, or is it 3/3, or is it 2/3? And so that there's the count out there. What I mean by that is they've got trips. They've got 3 receivers out there. Do you have 3 guys over top of them? It's probably a man coverage, or it could be a zone, or do you have 4/3, which means I've got something else open somewhere else, or maybe I've got a 5-man box, or, God forbid you have 2/3 and you just completely don't respect one of those guys, which is sometimes the right thing to do.
Please do catch it.
Maybe you just said, look, the number 3 is not even relevant. And so I'll handle him with like my stack linebacker and my 3-3. I'm like, we'll get to him. And the free safety, and they're kind of just like in the area, but they're not really, right? They're in the box. So I think that's the considerations with the spread. And of course, that's without going into what are their best plays and, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it's understanding what they're trying to do in the spread, not worrying about whether you're a 3-3 or a 4-2 or anything like that, and just adjusting to what the mentality is.
The once again, variability shows back up here, that the ability to adapt, because I think to make your defense, whatever your defense is, stop the spread. You covered most of it there, right? You got to figure out. I think it's a little more intimate per each opponent, though. You need to figure out what is that opponent trying to do.
Right? Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yes, that's the thing, is you've got to figure out what they do. Yes.
I'm big on having tools in the toolbox. So I want to know, and you can't just have one way to stop stuff, right? Kenny Ridley's been on the show, and he taught me a long time ago, like, you need to have 3 ways to stop everything, right? That doesn't mean I have 3 ways to stop every play in football. Conceptually, they'll start to overlap anyway. But what is your opponent doing really well? What can they not beat you with? Right? It's almost, you go back to like, well, they can't beat you with their best player. How am I stopping him? And if they beat me with their 3rd best wide receiver, by God, they were just better than us. It's kind of the same thing here. If I you used to say, Joe, rip the first page out of the playbook. Okay. Now rip the second one out. Now rip the third one out. If they can go to pages 4 through 12 and beat you, maybe it was just you were outgunned. But you need to have tools out of your base stuff that makes that possible. We talked about zone read teams. If that's what they are, how are you doing? Are you doing gap exchange? Are you're gonna force their hand? You're gonna force a read somewhere, and then you're fitting like a linebacker in there to stop the run? Are they an RPO team? Are they an RPO team that reads a guy that's not really in conflict? Right? If you read the backside inside backer on power, he's not in conflict. Right? He's following a pulling guard. How's that conflict? He's not. It's not his job. Right. Safety should come down and make that play, right? If you're gonna slant them up back there. So understanding that and taking you talked about space a lot. Look, Dub Maddox's R4 system's getting bigger and bigger all the time, but it's the same stuff, guy. He just put common offensive football stuff into a book.
Such big words.
Yeah. Oh, he does. I've started rereading it. It's literally right.
I've
started rereading them because I just need the reminder sometimes, right? But they're just looking for space. So I think some tools in your toolbox has to be show them a space and then take it away. We talked about press. We had Dominic Franks come on the podcast and talk about you can play cover 3 out of a press look. Press them, zone turn, and run your tail off back to your deep third.
That was Seattle for years with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, and what they do, they check to a slant or to a fade ball, and then you're already running there. So
artificially taking away space, yeah. I mean,
yeah. So
playing so again, that's a mentality thing. That's what we talk about. Artificially taking away space. Is I'm deep third player, but I look like I'm. Now, I'm teaching that concept of I'm not in the best position to play this. I talk about our players a lot with this. Is so like if the 2 routes that you run are a post and a fade as a corner, and I go, well, I got sideline help outside. I'm going to align. We do this a lot on the goal line. I'm going to align so far inside. So like on the goal line, we'll be like, look, they're on a slant. On the goal line, what is it? It's a slant and a fade, right? That's it. Yeah. So I'm going to align so far inside. And I don't have to line all, though I can be 5 yards off because you're not going to run behind me. I'm going to align so far inside that by alignment, the slant is shut down. And then I'm going to play nothing but the fade.
Yeah.
That's how you take away space. And then mentally, I'm taking away one thing. Like you said, if I press, but I'm deep third, I physically have taken away the hitch. I physically have taken away the look. I physically have taken away the screen by my alignment. But mentally, I'm deep third. I'm getting out. Snap of the ball, I'm bailing.
And you talked alignments and stuff, and you're right, man. It just depends on what they're wanting to do with. If you can catch their rules, because you go back and watch TCU's 4-2-5, right, which is kind of where you started the Gary Patterson. You go and check his stuff out. Now we've got Joe Daniels' 4-2-5 defense. What does he look like to 2x2 spread? Mm-hmm. He's in a 4-1, right? Because he's gonna match numbers. Now these are college athletes, D1 college athletes that are pretty darn good. You may not have that, so you can't go copy paste what does the system say you're supposed to do. No, you've got to play to the strengths of your kids. Who are you hiding? Who are you covering up?
Well, when the tight front was, it's not dead or anything like that, but there was a time when that was the answer to the spread was the tight front.
Yeah, take away the bubble.
Cool, but it's a 5-man box. Like I get that it gives you this and that, but it's a 5-man box. Like you're in this, and sometimes it was a 4-1, like or 3-1, with like these kind of overhangs out there and like a modified 3-3 type of deal. And that's the idea that is a pat, always the answer. It's like, it's not always the answer. Just like there was the idea for a long time that RPOs were the answer always is man coverage to RPOs. So I learned that the 3 ways to defend everything from Jim Reed. And it started with zone read. Jim Reed said there's 3 ways. You have to have 3 ways to defend zone read.
Right.
Because that at that time, that was what everybody in college was doing. This was coming off of the heels of Urban Meyer. And, I think Urban was at Florida by then, but it was, a few years after really at Utah, it kind of changed. And Rich Rod, same thing. So the spread was everywhere and everybody was doing it. He was defensive coordinator at Virginia. And so he talked about they have to have 3 ways to defend zone read. We talk about 3 ways to defend zone read. And we talk about 3 ways to defend trips, 3 different trips adjustments you always have with us, 3 ways to defend empty. Those are some basic ones. Like, you don't need 3 ways to defend everything, like you said. Like, I don't need 3 ways to defend GT counter if they run it 3 times a game. It's like, man, it's our base defense. Like, but if it's their specialty, you better have 3 ways to defend it.
Yeah. The last piece I want to touch on, then we'll move into our last part. But I also think this is a great place. And it's because you talked mentality. I am the Swiss Army knife mentality. That's the only way I got on the field. I was not a good football player, but I could play any position from free safety, strong safety, outside backer, inside backer. Honestly, probably put me on the D line, and I would have given you all my effort and done something. That's what I did as a scout team player in college, was just give tackles work. But this is a great place to teach, like, to use those Swiss Army knives and put kids where you need them. Yeah, man, you've been the free safety for us for 5 games because you fit the alley really well. I don't need you to fit the alley this week, right? I need you to already be out there. It kind of goes back to the line where he's going and meet him on the way. Look, if they're going to run up in 3-by-1 all night long, put your best free safety at outside backer and put your next best free safety in the backfield and take away the bubbles, take away the slants, because you have a dude out there. So I think it's another way you can take and adjust. I don't care if you're 4-3, 3-3, 4-2-5. Doesn't matter to me. Put kids where they are going to stop what the opponent's doing this week. Does that have to be permanent? You might find you really like it. You might find that, hey, this adjustment, actually, we don't need him back there at free safety all the time. And I go back to my very first season in football where we had kids where they should have went by look, by size.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had, 28 kids. We didn't have a bunch of kids that just looked. But big boys were on the defensive line. A little bit smaller guys were on the inside backer. A little bit smaller guys were safeties. And we just had a kid that wouldn't fit, he would not come and stop the run at linebacker. So about halfway through the season, we just put our 2 defensive tackles at inside linebacker, and I don't know that we gave up 50 more yards in a game for the rest of the season because those guys just handled stuff, right? And we finally realized, like, that's where they should have been the whole time. Now, obviously, a little bit different here, but make the adjustment that's going to help you succeed. It's okay if it makes a kid have to learn something else. You can simplify his job. It's a freaking fast win anyways. So
yeah, if you've got a system in place like our umbrella run fits, it's not that hard to understand a different spot for certain players.
Right.
What I don't like is going in and saying, like, we're going to be a 3-4 because I like a 3-4, but all my players are dumb as snot, but we'll figure it out. Like, you've got to know who can handle it, who can be the Swiss Army knife and who can't. We had one kid who, I love him to death. He was so important for our team. He played defensive end. He played inside linebacker. He played strong safety. I think he might have lined up at corner at times. He played tight end. He played H-back. He played receiver. And he started multiple games with us as a 165-pound guard. Like, that kid could line up anywhere. And he was not going to – none of them was he better than the best kid, right?
Right.
We didn't want him to play guard, but we needed a guard. We didn't want him to start at tight end when he did, but we needed a tight end. We didn't want him to be the inside linebacker, but we needed an inside linebacker. Probably the best place that he did for us was defensive end, but I mean, he was 165 pounds. But wherever we needed to plug him in situationally, he could handle that. He could do that. You have to know who can handle that and who, for a lot of your kids, and I just, because we're in this time of year and so many coaches are going through install and they're like, oh my God, these kids are so dumb. They don't get it. And it's like, listen,
it infuriates
me. It doesn't infuriate me anymore. I just accept it because there's so many coaches. It's not like it's not a mistake by the coach. It's just, it's the reality. And I did it too. Everything seemed, not everything, but a lot of things seem easy to you and they're not easy to a kid. And one of those is, and so I will back up and I will point this out when I say you can be multiple front. It might seem easy to you to line up here instead of here. It might seem well, you're just doing this, just line up here instead of here. Line up, instead of being over top of the guard, you're over top of the tackle. What's the difference? It's different. For some kids can compartmentalize and go like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a guy. Some kids can't compartmentalize it. Some kids can't just say, it's different. Like you look at you're moving a kid from a 3 tech to a 5 tech, moving it from a defensive tackle to a defensive end. Everybody should be able to do that. That's one of the advantages supposedly of the 4-3 is that you're only teaching nothing. You're teaching nothing but outside shade defensive linemen, right? Everybody's in an outside shade. You play a 5, a 1, a 3, and a 9. Everybody's
Right.
an outside shade. It's still different. I could never just move a kid from a 3 to a 9 and have the kid be like, all right. It's always like, what do I do? Put your hand in the dirt.
Everything you already did.
Same stuff. It's like, well, he's got to go further when he gets the strength call, and he's got to learn different little nuances and stuff. It's just always different.
Want to jump to the last part here? I know we're kind of pushing on time tonight, which we've become accustomed to, but that's what happens when you talk football. Last part here: coaching your defense to swarm to the ball, and I'm gonna let you take the spotlight here.
So the next step in this is you get the alignment and the pre-snap, and you put them in the best place pre-snap. If you put everybody in the best place possible pre-snap and then they don't move, you're going to lose. If you put everybody in the best place possible pre-snap and they move in the wrong direction, you're going to lose. So what we have to do is now get everybody in the best possible place pre-snap, alignment levers, get the best stance possible, key reads, levers. Then we have to stance levers. Then we have to get the right key reads, and we have to get them to carry out their assignment. And the main thing with that is the key read and what I do after I get my key read. And so we talk about, I get a lot of coaches coming to us and saying, we suck at tackling. And how do we need tackling drills. They'll help somewhat, but if you turn on the film, a lot of times those missed tackles, like look at those missed tackles and how many of those missed tackles are because they were in a one-on-one situation with a better athlete, which is what the spread is trying to do. The way to fix your tackling is not a million tackling drills. It'll help, but there's a faster way. If everybody on your defense drops their head and throws an arm at the guy, then yeah, you need more tackling drills. You have a fundamentally flawed tackling situation. We ran into a problem last year, and it was just the most infuriating thing. Everybody on our defense, kids are kids, was trying kill shots, throwing the shoulder, not shooting the hands, squeezing the legs, running the feet. And it was this horrible, like they were all doing it and it wasn't working. We were missing so many tackles. It wasn't working. And I just don't know why they were all doing. These were players who had been taught how to tackle before. And obviously they needed drills and they needed to go back to, and they needed to be on film and see how this stuff wasn't working. And they needed to buy in to the way that we teach tackling. And eventually we got back on, we finished the season much better than we started it. So, but for the most part, the best way to fix your tackling is to get numbers to the point of attack. So again, translate that, take away space, close that space down. Because what I want is I want to get in space in a one-on-one game with my best athlete on your 11th, your 10th. And that's now, how do I get more guys into that space faster? So I always talk about our platinum clients with JDFB don't have a lot of tackling issues. And it's not because they're superior athletes. They're certainly not superior athletes. Nobody comes to very, very few coaches come to JDFB going, we were 13-1 last year. We just need to get over the hump. They usually come because they were 2-8 last year or 0-10. And those teams still, through our game film analysis, and you see it, by week 4, 5, 6, the new ones, they don't have a ton of tackling. It's not tackling issues anymore. And it's not because they've become elite tacklers. It's because by focusing on key reads and alignment and levers and leverage, which is a big one, they get numbers there. So take things like force a change of direction, the way that we teach our outside force defenders. You must force a change of direction. Either he needs to cut back inside or he needs to bubble away from you. If he cuts back inside, the pursuit's all coming, and we get there. If he bubbles away from you, then gives time for pursuit to get there. Get more numbers to the point of attack. Well, if an outside linebacker, overhang safety, force defender doesn't understand force a change of direction, he will go up the field and create a vertical seam and miss the tackle, and that guy never slows down, never, makes one cut and he's out the gate. We don't turn him back. We don't really force a change of direction. He will be too wide and have a horizontal seam, and then the guy will never slow down, and we don't force him anywhere. He will take a bad angle, and he will attack the inside hip, and instead of turning him back to all of his help, he turns him outside to where there's nobody. And, he didn't bubble. He just beat me outside, made me miss outside. Or, he made me miss inside, which gave him the outside. And so those types of things, key read, getting the right read, run or pass, and getting going in the direction that this thing is happening, where the ball is going, is one. Things like screen retrace can be big against spread teams. That's a key read for defensive linemen. By the way, you don't stop screens. Now, some screens you do, but like a middle screen or even an alley screen, the best way to stop those is to get your defensive linemen to react, because they're the ones not being blocked. They're depending on them not reading it.
Keep screaming upfield.
So you're all yelling at your linebackers and your safeties. Well, there's extra blockers for your linemen and your safeties, right? Or for linebackers and your safeties, because they didn't block 3 of your defensive linemen. So if they don't have to block 3 of your defensive linemen, that screen's going to work.
Yeah.
Unless you just have a stellar play in space. The way to defend it is to get a better key read and follow those linemen out and be where the ball is going, which is right behind their butts. And so key reads, can I get to the space? And then leverage, can I turn those guys out in space back to where the help is, or to the sideline, or wherever it needs to be? That's how you fix tackling and take away space after the snap. And that's all of our drills. Everything we do at JDFB is just built on that. It's because I think it's so important. It's everything. I mean, it's the difference in, like, it's because if you focus on that, you can take a team and turn them from 1-9 to 5-5 without new players, without any, and it's so much easier is not the word, but it's the best I can do. It's so much easier than building a brand new offensive scheme, because you're just fixing your defense. You really are. And you're focusing on these things that you do every single time, every single week, over and over again, running to the ball. And then, of course, then there's the other things like are you coaching up the effort, the pursuit? Are they getting, they flying to the ball, or, all that kind of stuff. And you have to coach that. You have to grade that. It's very easy to grade that, grade effort. If you want to do that, you can give an overall effort grade. You can run drills on that. It's a pursuit. I don't like traditional pursuit drill, but like a 3-man pursuit drill or something can help with that. That's a who we are on defense. If you allow that in practice, if you allow them to be lazy in practice, it's going to happen in the game.
Yep. Was it
don't allow it in practice? It's still going to happen in the game, because kids are kids, but it's going to happen less.
Yeah. Was it you that taught me it was like the 999 rule or something?
It's Ricky Kuhn's rule. It's a 9-5-9 rule. 9 men to the ball. 9 men within 5 men. 9 men within 5 yards of the ball 90% of the time. Really good way to just check as the ball carrier hits the ground, pause the film, count how many hats are on the camera, basically, right? Depending on how zoomed out it is. But how many guys are within a 5-yard radius of the ball? And that was, and obviously there are certain things that you don't count that for, like a fade ball lands on the ground, goes out of bounds, like corners are like out there. But like your run plays and you 9 guys within 5 yards of the ball 90% of the time. Everybody can do it. We had a kid who was one of the best defensive football players that I've ever coached, and it was 100% effort. He was 145 pounds. Like you said, if we were just going on size and what he should be, he was one of our best defensive players. So he either would have been a free safety or a strong safety, weak safety.
Right.
And instead in our 3-4, he was the weak side outside linebacker, and that was the one that we were bringing every single down. We were slanting strong and bringing him all the time, and he just caused chaos. He just played. He stopped plays before they got going. But you could run a tall sweep to the opposite side. So the other thing that this was for was he was such a high energy go, go, go when he was an outside backer, when he was the forced defender, when he got destroyed on counter plays because he would go chasing. The more so when he was young, he got better. But when we put him at that will backer position, he could just go. And so we put him in a position where now this kid could be in on and he was literally in on every single play. Everyone can do that. Everyone can do that. Everyone can be in, maybe not every single play because he did have some instincts, but the effort, everyone can do that.
Yeah.
And so that 9-5-9 rule is a really good one. Yeah.
It's really my only addition to this part of the podcast because, you covered all the rest so well, unfortunately. But I think that does do it for the night, Joe. I think we've checked all the boxes. If you all that are listening, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're walking away with something useful, think of one coach who could use it too, whether it is a 9-5-9 rule, whether it's, how to adjust a defense to stop a specific offense or whatever. And then send this podcast their way. That's kind of how we all get better at this and just be better as a total. Tonight, we talked about how to defend modern offenses, your defensive system adapting to anything, adjusting your defense you have now to shut down the spread. You don't have to install a new defense. How to coach your defense to swarm to the ball. Last week, we talked about our offensive line gets overpowered. And next week, we're talking about not having enough depth at key positions, which I think is going to be a really good conversation. Hope you guys jump back in next week. Joe, one last time, man, let's pay the bills. We'll start closing out here.
All right. Is your football team stuck in a losing tradition you can't seem to break? You put in hours of hard work. You do all the right things. You've tried changing the scheme. You've tried changing the culture. Nothing seems to work. You cannot break the losing cycle. When the going gets tough, when adversity strikes, the heads drop, and it's the same old, here we go again feeling. It's time to break out. I've put out my latest coaching manual, which is called Breaking the Losing Cycle. It is brand new. It is all new. It reveals how underdog teams are turning their seasons around without needing more talent or a bigger roster. You're going to find out why teams stay stuck in the losing cycle, the secret ingredients to breaking out, and the quick fix solutions you can use right now to break the losing cycle for good this season. Download that free manual right now at joedanielfootball.com to break the cycle. joedanielfootball.com/breaking. BREAKING, and went back and forth on what the URL should be because I'm like, they're going to be breaking the car. To break the cycle and put an end to your losing tradition now.
Maybe you should just put both of them, both URLs. Just put them to the same place.
Thought about it because I'm never going to use BRAKE for anything.
We are slowing down the cycle. We are breaking the cycle. It just isn't a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Athletic Speed Movement. Guys, go over there. It is the best speed. We have an in-season program. I know we're all in season now at this point, right? And especially because in about 2 weeks, we're getting ready to play our first game, which is crazy. AthleticSpeedMovement.com. There's an in-game or in-season version of that. And then, if you just don't really want to change your practice shells this year, then get comfortable with it, give it to your speed guy, and get him ready for December, January, February when you start using it. AthleticSpeedMovement.com. Also remind you that I do have my Patreon going, patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. My Patreon is a place where I can do all that crap that you don't have time to do. So it's my taking things off the head coach plate. So if you need graphics done, you need to start networking, you need to produce a media guide. If it's out there and needs to be done, I can probably help you do it. Find a tier that fits for you. If there's not one, email me and we'll make a tier and I'll just call it your name. It'll be super special. Which sales are opening and closing here, Joe, as we approach this 28th day of August?
I believe I'm not sure.
Awesome. Sign up for the emails. Go to JoeDanielFootball.com and sign up for the emails, and you'll know what's opening and closing.
You will.
It'll be
Yeah,
great.
you'll
for you.
definitely know if you're on the emails. Yeah.
There we go. Social media, I'm at Coach Chambo. Okay, you can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. I do have a website that I still don't do anything with. I've got to figure that thing out. And of course, patreon.com. Maybe I'll just do a thing that we'll figure it out. I do have a YouTube. It's going around. It's where I share kind of all the live stuff. It's a great place to get this podcast, the other podcast. I think this podcast, I don't know now. My gaming, I started gaming. Look, Battlefield 6 just came out.
Nerd.
Super nerd. And I actually don't share it on this YouTube. I have my own gaming YouTube. Sarnt Louis, SarntLouie. And it's because anyway, Sarnt Louis is my gamer tag. So you can find me on that YouTube, which is going to be super cool when Battlefield gets going full blast here, streaming daily, hopefully. What are you doing, Joe? Where are you at on social medias?
Not playing Battlefield 6.
Well, get in on it, son. What are
No,
you doing?
I don't. No, I don't want to.
We can stream together.
No, I'm busy with Ori and the Blind Forest and wrapping that up. And I haven't played in a couple of days. Well, been a little bit. Very close to finishing that one up, but
no shame in that game.
That's very good.
Literally the game.
Very good game. Very good if you like the Metroidvanias. But it is hard. I will say that. I mean, it is. It's a forgiving hard. Like if you die, you just basically respawn wherever the last place you saved, and it can be, you get to a hard spot and you just save and you just try and eventually get through. But it is hard sometimes. I am on Twitter at footballinfo or X or whatever. Most importantly, email Joe at joedanielfootball.com. Obviously, joedanielfootball.com is the website where you can get access to JDFB Premium Coaching Systems, those free manuals, all that kind of stuff is going to be there. Blog posts, the podcast, everything. And at Joe Daniel Football on Instagram, at Joe Daniel Football on TikTok. Mostly going to be podcast clips and stuff there. And then Facebook.com/Joe Daniel Football. Jump onto some of the dumbest discussions I've ever seen in my life on like random posts that have like a drawing of a diagram of a defense, and just see what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And not from not from JDFB, not from members, but from reason I don't read Facebook posts and YouTube comments. JoeDanielFootball.com/YouTube. Also.
Love it.
Yeah.
The podcast is at the FBCP on Twitter/X. All right, coaches, that is the final whistle. Look, we're all sports related and stuff on this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, the follow, the likes, whatever the thing is that you're watching on to allow you to get more of us. Come back and see us next week. If you've been here before, leave a quick review. It'll help other coaches find us, and it'll help other coaches that can join the Joe Daniel Football Huddle. As always, coach simple, play fast, win.